We were super lucky, honestly. Like one of our advisors called it a Cinderella story because in my first year of launching, when it was still just me, we had an Instagram and we had our D2C business where we were doing, I don't know, $100,000 in sales. Whole Foods reached out and they loved the bottle. They loved the polyphenol content and the story that we were telling. And they wanted to launch it nationally. I did not have the capacity. I hadn't sourced the olive oil farms that could provide that quantity. And so we launched in 150 stores with one SKU in 2020. And we've now worked our way up to 15 SKUs nationally. So we're in every Whole Foods. So you'll be able to find that blue bottle in every Whole Foods.
I'm Patrick J. McGinnis, and I coined the term FOMO. That's short for fear of missing out, and it's why some people end up following the crowd when they should be blazing a trail of their own. But if you want to achieve greatness in business and life, you've got to break free. Come on, I'll show you how. This is FOMO Sapiens, where we explore how entrepreneurial thinkers find the inspiration and the courage to build exceptional lives. Welcome back to FOMO Sapiens, the show for entrepreneurial thinkers. I'm your host, Patrick J. McGinnis, and today we are very lucky to welcome the guest, Katina Mountanos, the founder of Kosterina, which is a wellness brand centered around high oxidant extra virgin olive oil and more broadly, the Mediterranean lifestyle that is currently sold at major retailers like Whole Foods and Target. Katina is also a trained olive oil sommelier, which is kind of my dream in life, and a Mediterranean diet expert. Prior to launching Kosterina, Katina was a serial entrepreneur and retail exec at places like Amazon, Walmart, Jet, and Elizabeth Arden. She began her career in investment banking, studied at NYU and Harvard Business School, and now lives in the New York area with her husband and 3 young children. Welcome to the show, Katina.
Thank you, Patrick. Excited to be here.
I'm excited to be here. And obviously, one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on the show is that I love, here it is, the product, Kosterina. I use this for everything, actually. Like I'm an olive oil guy. Got to stay away from those seed oils. And I use it to cook. I use it to make things. So I love your product.
I love to hear that. Thank you so much. It really is some of the best olive oil in the world. So we're super proud of the product and what we put out into the world. And we agree on seed oils and the toxicity of seed oils. So yeah, excited to talk through it all.
And by the way, folks, I'm not an affiliate. I'm not a secret marketer for Kosterina. Although if you want to make me your spokesman, that's a conversation we can have. But anyway.
You're hired.
Okay. So I start every show with the same question, and you are, not going to escape me. The question is this: what's something unexpected you learned about yourself that changed everything?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Something unexpected I learned about myself that changed everything.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's that I fell in love with entrepreneurship in my first job as at a startup. So I was working at L'Oreal and then went to work for a really iconic New York City founder named Mark Lorry when he started his first, or not his first, but one of his early companies, Quidsy. It was eventually sold to Amazon. And that first day on the job, before that I had been in big corporations. And that first day on the job, I was a merchandiser in the beauty categories. And I said to my boss, like, hey, I'm thinking about reaching out to these 10 companies. And she said, why are you asking me? And I was like, oh, like that's so different. Like I don't have to get approval for what I'm going to do. I can just go. And I just really fell in love with just executing and the speed that you get in the world of startups. And now I can never go back.
Yeah, it's kind of a one-way road, unless they buy your company and then pay you to stay, right?
Yeah, and I was part of some, several acquisitions after that point. We got acquired by Amazon, so I became an Amazon employee. Left, started my first company, Manicube, where we first connected. That was sold to Elizabeth Arden, and then I went to work for Jet.com and got sold to Walmart. We got sold to Walmart, so I ended up literally at the Fortune 1, just trying to be in startups. So, that's when I left and started Kosterina.
Yeah, you just referred to Manicube. So we actually met a gazillion years ago. It was probably 2012, 2013, something like that. When I quit my job and was trying to figure out what I was going to do with my life, and you had started Manicube with your business partner, Liz, we were introduced by Farah, our mutual friend. And I remember you pitched me, and it was a business, and I can remember the pitch so well. It's basically that you would send trained manicurists into workplaces where they could do a manicure in 15 minutes and you could do high volume in the same place. And it was and it created a much more stable work environment for manicurists, which is a really hard industry. And And so anyway, I remember that you did this pitch, and it was so, and I'm sure I've told you this in the past, like it was one of the best pitches, at least, among the best pitches I've ever seen. And the materials were so tight. Like the numbers were right. It was so good. So anyway, you did that, your business, you raised a bunch of money, you sold to Elizabeth Arden, and then you go off and you decide to start another company. So let's start there. What did you learn from the Manicube story that you brought into the Kosterina story?
Yeah, I mean, I think I learned everything in the Manicube experience. Like there were so many functions that I had just never touched in my career up until that point. I worked in finance for 4 years in investment banking, but I had never looked at like a company P&L that was just starting out and how important it is to make sure you understand your numbers and what your margins are. I had never worked worked with a PR agency. I had never hired a creative agency. I had never thought about operations. So, it really was just like the start of everything and truly understanding the way a full business comes together for the first time. And I was lucky to have an amazing co-founder, my partner, Liz Whitman. At the time, she's also now co-founding a beauty business, and we figured it out together. So you met us really early on in that journey, and super happy to hear that you thought it was a great pitch.
I'm curious. I mean, so I just gave the pitch a little bit. Mm-hmm. Did it work out that way? Like, were you able to? I remember when we talked about this, I think my big thing was I sat down and I said, okay, because I was like thinking about investing. I was like, okay, $10 million in revenue divided by whatever it was $25 a manicure, I think at the time, maybe. Is that right?
A little bit less. Yeah, a little bit less.
15, mm-hmm. Whatever. And I was like, okay, 10 million divided by 15 means you have to do like a lot of manicures. And so this like scaling to that number is really hard. Like, was your plan something that you ended up sort of achieving, or did you like pivot a bunch of times along the way? Because obviously, in the end of the day, you were able to sell, so you had creative value.
Yeah, we definitely pivoted a million times along the way. What we found is we began to add services. So the thesis behind Manicube originally started because women weren't getting the same in-office services as men were getting. So It was inspired by my days in investment banking, where there were men's haircuts, dry cleaning, shoe shine, and all these services for men. And then I was like running to the nail salon at 9 p.m. and we're not really supporting women and you have to think back to a time where people were at an office from 8:30 to 7 p.m. every day. So, very different world. We definitely pivoted a bunch of times. We ended up adding additional services to the repertoire. So we did chair massages, we did men's haircuts, all in the same office. With different service providers. And we really thought about it as like a unit. The unit economics model was on a city basis. So we had launched in New York, Boston, San Francisco, and Chicago. And we worked to create a profitable city before expanding.
You must have, when the pandemic hit, you must have been like, phew.
Yeah.
Thank goodness.
It was 5 years later, 5 years after, the Elizabeth Arden acquisition. So totally different world. Yeah. Manicube would not have survived that.
Yeah, it's crazy. All right, so let's talk about Kosterina. So you, where did you get this? I mean, you're Greek, right? You have a very Greek name, kind of like I have a very Irish name. Yep. So we have that going for us. It'd be like if I sold shamrocks, but how did you decide to do this business?
I came to building Kosterina from two places. First was a place of taste, which was inspired by my Greek heritage, and then the second was a place of health. So, I grew up between New York and this very small town in southern Greece. That's the center of olive country. Actually, the town is called Koroni, and the variety of olive oil that we make and sell is Koroneiki, which literally means from Koroni. So that seed and tree originated in my hometown. I grew up with incredibly good, healthy, delicious extra virgin olive oil that we literally poured on everything. It was the centerpiece of every meal. Yeah. And, I started buying Greek extra virgin olive oil and Italian Evu as I started cooking more at home as an adult. And I was like, this is honestly just disgusting. I don't understand how we can even say Greek or Italian extra virgin on the bottle. So first, it was really a place of taste. I was like, I want to bring the good stuff to the US and create the brand that stands for good olive oil. But when I got super excited about Kosterina as a wellness platform, which is how we think about the business today, was when I learned just how healthy olive oil can be when it's harvested early and milled properly. And so what you get when you do that is a really high antioxidant extra virgin olive oil. And those antioxidants are called polyphenols. They have been proven by hundreds of studies to reduce the risk of cancer, diabetes, Alzheimer's, heart disease. They're essentially fighting inflammation in the body anywhere that it's brewing. And there are studies that show that 2 teaspoons a day of this type of olive oil will reduce your risk of your all-cause mortality risk, your risk of dying of anything, by up to 33%. So it's truly a longevity drug. And,
Wow.
this type of olive oil also tastes amazing. So it's such a win-win, healthy and delicious. And, we got really excited about building a wellness brand centered around this high antioxidant extra virgin olive oil, but more broadly focused on the modern Mediterranean way of eating and living.
FOMO. It makes sense. I'd like to dig into a little bit, like, because you're right. Like, we all know olive oil is good for us. It's not like, nobody would deny that. But like many other things in our food ecosystem, like the thing that's marketed when you go to the store, because there's not a lack of olive oils on the shelf. Like, we all know that. But when when we buy it, like, it's been so messed with that it's not giving us what we need. So like, what is happening in the olive oil ecosystem in the US in particular that is making this product, which should be good for us, not so good for us?
So there is plenty of good olive oil in the world. There's a lot of high quality extra virgin olive oil. It's very often ends up being very expensive, and it's very hard to scale. So what we're trying to do at Kosterina is provide consistently high quality, clean, tested, chemically tested, microplastic tested extra virgin olive oil, where we can build trust and the consumer knows that they're always getting something clean, healthy, and delicious, but at scale and at accessible pricing. That's what's hard to do. And that's, really been our focus. I think some of the cheating that's going on, or like the shortcuts, are that companies are not testing. They're not making sure that olive oil is clean. They're packaging it in unsafe packaging, like plastic, for example. Microplastics can leach into olive oil when it's stored in plastic because, phthalates are fat soluble, which means the olive oil can sort of pull microplastics into it. There are not wide studies on this. We've done our own studies and have found that to be true, but there's no statistically significant study that has been completed on that. And so, what we're trying to do is honestly just continue to do the right thing. We test every batch of extra virgin olive oil that comes from Greece to make sure it's clean and healthy.
And as you do that, in order to do that at a price that's competitive, like, what are the decisions you have to make? Are there certain things around the scale or the way that you build the business that are kind of I don't want to, all the secrets, but like, how do you get there?
Yeah, I mean, we'll always be more premium priced. We'll always be at the high end of the market because, doing that testing costs money. Packaging in safe, opaque glass packaging costs more money than it does to put it in a plastic bottle. It also costs more than putting it in a clear glass bottle because we need to paint it and make sure it's, that olive oil is protected from light, heat, and oxygen. We also transport the olive oil in temperature-controlled environments. We never let it get too hot because the polyphenol content can degrade and the olive oil can oxidize. It's no longer as good on your table in New York City as it was when it came out of the mill in Greece, if you don't take those precautionary measures.
Now, you are an olive oil sommelier, which I mentioned coming in. It's like, sounds like something I should do. I once there's a restaurant in Assisi in Italy that's a olive oil centric restaurant. It's like a Michelin star restaurant that I ate at. You got to look it up, everybody. And anyway, that was like, I've always liked olive oil, but that was just like one of these things where it's like, this is incredible. But it's one of these, once you kind of get into it, and I spent a lot of time in Turkey. So I kind of lived a little bit of a Mediterranean lifestyle, and I really integrated it into my diet. As growing up as a kid, I never had olive oil, right? So it's the kind of thing that is not necessarily inherent to the American palate, but it is inherent to the Mediterranean palate. What does being an olive oil sommelier kind of give you? What are the things that you sort of take from that to bring into the business you're building?
Well, the olive oil sommelier course I took before I launched the business to learn, because I was like, what makes a good olive oil? It was there that I learned just how healthy olive oil can be. There was one story in particular. So there was a speaker who came in there, and I'll tell you the story real quick. It was the gentleman who discovered oleocanthal, which is one of the polyphenols in extra virgin olive oil. And the way he discovered it is super interesting. So he was a researcher for a pharmaceutical company called Reckitt Benckiser. And as part of his research, he was taking uncoated ibuprofen. And he went to Italy independently, separate from his work. And he was at this conference. And what he ended up having was fresh olive oil off the tree. And he drank that olive oil, and it gave him a slight burn at the back of his throat that felt like the ibuprofen. So he took the olive oil back to his research team. He showed it to his lead researcher. And that man said to him, "Why did you put ibuprofen in the olive oil?" And he was like, "That's just it. I didn't." And that team discovered that oleocanthal has the same benefits as chemical man-made ibuprofen, but in a completely natural substance that comes from, trees. And so knowing that extra virgin olive oil truly acts like medicine was sort of game-changing for me, and really inspired the building of a wellness, health-focused company. I had been working at Walmart before starting Kosterina, and just looking at the number one line items in grocery, which include sugary cereals and soda, and was pairing that with an obesity and diabetes epidemic in adults and children, and just really, really wanted to focus on consumer health in the next phase of my career. And this really was the perfect ingredient to be the umbrella for all of that.
Yeah, and it is an emerging trend. I was, people who follow me on socials know I gave up ultra processed foods starting in January. And my resting heart rate dropped 10 beats per minute, which is like,
wow.
It's not like I'm like eating, Fruit Loops every morning.
Yeah.
That's my dream, but I'm not doing that. Mm-hmm. But it is crazy. And so you see this consumer trend evolving. Now it's very interesting. I picked up my bottle of Kosterina at the Whole Foods around the corner in Tribeca here. So if you're a New Yorker, you can find it. But you're also in Target. How does one get, and those are interesting because they're different kind of businesses. How do you get into these big, you worked in these types of companies, you understand the game, right? But like, how do you actually break into a Whole Foods or a Target?
Yeah, we were super lucky. Honestly, like one of our advisors called it a Cinderella story, because in my first year of launching, when it was still just me, we had an Instagram and we had our D2C business where we were doing, $100,000 in sales. Whole Foods reached out. And they loved the bottle. They loved the polyphenol content and the story that we were telling. And they wanted to launch it nationally. I didn't have, they invited me to Austin for the line review. The first slide of the presentation that they make you fill out says, like, please list all the people from your team who will be attending the meeting. And it was like, just me. I didn't have any team yet. And they wanted to launch it nationally. I did not have the capacity. I hadn't sourced the olive oil farms that could provide that quantity. And so we launched in 150 stores with one SKU in 2020. And we've now worked our way up to 15 SKUs nationally. So we're in every Whole Foods. So you'll be able to find that blue bottle in every Whole Foods.
How do you, one thing that happens sometimes, I've seen this like over the years as an investor, is you get one of those accounts, you get that big name, and it can kill you because you have customer concentration, you have the pressure of growing quickly to meet demand. How did you manage risk? What were the decisions that you made in order to say, okay, I want to work with you, Whole Foods, but at the same time, like, I want to do it in a way that I can actually sustainably grow with you?
Mm-hmm. I think, and I have been in that position where I was like a little too eager and stepped over my skis. But I think the best decision that we made back then was, they wanted us nationally for 500 doors, and we agreed to 150. So I think like if we had gone to 500 and I, rushed to Greece to source more good olive oil and launched it in 500 doors, but didn't have the money to support it or the operations team to support that sort of operation, that's where, a company can fail really, really quickly.
And so now that you're, people would say, I'm sure listening, it's tempting to say, well, okay, you got Target and Amazon, great. Like you're done, you're made, that's it. But I know you have big dreams and ambitions around a lifestyle company. So like, how do you figure out like what to do next once you've got those kind of initial, really helpful indicators of, this is working?
Mm-hmm. Well, we spend a lot of time also on our D2C business. So Kosterina.com is still a very significant portion of the business, and we want to continue to grow that. And we feel that the digital environment is the place to do all our storytelling. Like when you go out to Whole Foods, you don't know that it's a high antioxidant extra virgin olive oil from Greece and that we do all that testing. You don't know the background. And so we leverage social media, the digital channels, the influencer communities, the affiliate communities to do that storytelling for us. And it's such a key piece. Our mission truly is to influence consumer health outcomes. We want everyone to have that eureka moment that you had in January this year, where they're like, oh, shoot, I should not be eating Doritos. I should not be feeding my kids goldfish. We want to inspire them to adopt this modern Mediterranean diet in their homes and be cooking. And so that digital piece is super important to everything that we're doing and to our mission. And so, I think after that Whole Foods launch initially, we really focused on the D2C side and the storytelling and the marketing that goes behind all of that, while continuing to look for the right retail outlets to expand carefully, sustainably, while knowing that we never wanted to negatively affect the quality of the product.
FOMO. It's a good point. I hadn't thought about it, but you have this story. It's an important story. It's a nuanced story. Like, not everybody gets it quite yet, of course, because you're building into a category, right? You've got to convince people why your product is different and why it's worth paying a little bit more for. And so you're using marketing, social media to inform your customer, who then will make the decision to buy the product when they walk into their local shop, or potentially buy it online. And so it's kind of like, that's interesting. And then as you do that, once you have somebody in your corner, then you can offer them other products that would appeal to their sensibility. And you moved into skincare, which I find interesting, because is the story there that using your products is healthful also for the skin? Is there a benefit to applying olive oil to the skin?
Yeah, there absolutely is. And just to back up for a second, I think our North Star has always been Siete. Are you familiar with Siete, the Mexican food brand?
No.
Oh, okay, so they make
like
gluten-free tortillas and all things Mexican cuisine. I live in a gluten-free household. I started with these, better for you gluten-free tortillas that were more expensive than all the tortillas in the supermarket. And, Siete really expanded into all things Mexican cuisine. They make chips, they make queso, they make, tons of different products. And I have that trust in them that I will literally buy anything Siete makes, because I know it's clean ingredients, I know it's gluten-free, and I know it tastes amazing. Mm-hmm. And so they've truly, inspired what we want Kosterina to be in terms of doing the same for the modern Mediterranean diet.
That makes a lot of sense.
And
skincare.
Yeah, and you asked about skincare. So, my background is in beauty, and I think that my career history has definitely inspired, the expansion into skincare. Olive oil has incredible benefits for skin. So it's deeply hydrating, but also the antioxidants in the extra virgin olive oil are very good for protecting the barrier of skin and protecting skin generally from aging and cracking. And so, the Greeks have been using olive oil on their skin for thousands of years. It's very healing. It's antiseptic. Actually, when babies have cradle cap, when they're first born, pediatricians recommend olive oil. It's just really an incredible product. And our skincare, we get emails all the time from people telling us that it healed their eczema. We haven't done any clinical trials on that, but it's just a natural substance it's incredibly healing both inside and out. And so, we love to tell that story. The consumer is beginning to understand that health and beauty comes from both the inside and the outside. And this truly is the perfect ingredient to cross both. And everything in the Kosterina skincare line has been formulated ultra clean. We use the Credo definition of clean and have even taken it a step further. We haven't formulated with any emulsifiers, which can be hormone disruptors. So, we're really proud of the skincare line. It hasn't been our focus from a marketing standpoint today, just because we don't have the resources to go big on both food and beauty, but we do see it as a big option for the future.
That's very cool. Can you just slather it on your face? Is that a bad idea?
So the olive oil, the food olive oil, you probably shouldn't. You can, people do, but actually olive oil is quite a large molecule. So for some people, it can cause breakouts. The way we formulate the skincare is with what we call carrier oils, which break the molecule into smaller parts so it can get deeper into the skin. So you get those benefits without the product sitting on the surface of skin.
Yeah, and also if you put it on before bed, it's going to be sloppy on the pillow.
Yeah, our face oil and our body oil are powered by extra virgin olive oil, and they are absorbed quickly, so they don't leave a greasy residue.
All right, this is very cool. So as an entrepreneur, you make a lot of decisions. What is your personal decision-making process? Is it gut instinct? Is it analysis? Is it phone a friend, outsource? Like, what's your kind of comfort zone on decision making?
I think I'm a pretty quick decision maker. I like to move fast, as evidenced by the very first question you asked me, where I was like so excited to be able to move fast in business in the startup world. When I'm unsure, it's definitely phone a friend. So lots of advisors, lots of amazing people on my team, our CMO, our head of new product development, our COO are, my closest advisors as it relates to big decision making. And there have been instances where they've sat me down and where I was very close to pulling the trigger on something. Like we almost opened up our own filling facility here in the US. I was literally about to sign the lease. Wow. And 2 or 3 of my teammates just scheduled a Zoom, and they were like, we really don't think you should do that. We should do this, and here are the reasons. And we didn't move forward. I'm so grateful to them for that.
Yeah, there's a beautiful balance between being a great leader who's decisive, but having a culture where people feel comfortable saying, hey, we've looked at this and we want to tell you, you may choose to do this, but we think you shouldn't.
Yeah. And, they had been along and giving me some of that feedback. And I think I was just super excited about it and wasn't hearing. And then usually I would have heard that earlier, but I think I was super excited about the potential for something. But, it was almost like an intervention. They were like, we really don't think you should do it. So super grateful to them because it was absolutely the right decision at the time.
Wow. That's pretty cool. All right. Do you want to do lightning round?
Yeah, let's do it.
Round? All right. Lightning round. 4 questions, 4 quick answers. Number 1 is this. What's a decision you're proud of that you made fast?
I think going into Target, pitching Target, because that opportunity came really quickly for us. We weren't sure if, after Whole Foods, Target should be the next, jump, because as you said, they're pretty different. One is mass and one is really this premium natural. But it's been amazing, and we're super excited to be able to have proven that we can, be accessible to the mass consumer.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I mean, that's magical. Number 2, favorite use case for ChatGPT?
Writing captions for Instagram posts. It just takes the thinking out of it.
Yeah, who writes their own captions?
Yeah, and now I literally just ask it everything, like anything you want to know, whereas before you would do like a Google search and try to find the right sources. It just literally will answer everything.
Yeah, we love ChatGPT on FOMO Sapiens. Okay, number 3. Piece of advice you give to somebody who wants to do what you're doing.
I would say rapid prototyping, which is don't try to get your product perfect. It's going to take a long time for it to be perfect. Create something, put it out into the market, get feedback, get reactions, get consumers talking about it, get your friends talking about it, and then you can iterate from there.
Yeah, so smart. And also you save so much money. You do, right? I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah. And, I think it takes a long time to do product development. And if you quit your job and focus on that 100%, then it's just so much pressure to perform right away. And it's probably not, because it's not going to be perfect yet. So, don't quit your day job and do some rapid prototyping.
Totally agree. Number 4, what's the most FOMO-inducing thing you've ever done?
FOMO-inducing thing I've ever done. So something I've done that has created FOMO in others?
Yeah. Or we'll create it in us right now.
Oh my gosh. I go to Greece every year for harvest season, and that to me is just magical. It's just being with the farmers and the producers who are so in love with what they do. They're so in love with their trees. They live such humble lives, and just being able to be part of that for a couple of weeks every year is an amazing experience, and just takes you out of the day to day.
Yeah, that's when you were mentioning this childhood between, U.S. and Greece, I was definitely I want that.
I was a farmer in a past life. I know I was a farm girl in a past life, so it's my happy place.
Nice. All right, so Katina, where should we find out more about you and about Kosterina?
Yeah, Kosterina.com. We're Kosterina on Instagram, Kosterina Evo on TikTok, sharing lots of educational content about the modern Mediterranean diet and olive oil specifically. So check us out. Our products are sold in Whole Foods, Target, the Fresh Market, and some other national retailers. All
right. Katina Mountanos, the founder of Kosterina. I'm going to say it in Greek. Ευχαριστώ for being here.
Ευχαριστώ. You're welcome. Παρακαλώ. Thank you so much for having me.
FOMO Sapiens is recorded in New York City and can be found on YouTube at FOMO Sapiens or on your favorite podcast network. Theme music is by Mike McGinnis, editing and post-production is by Josh Elstro, and the show is produced by Matt Curtis and me. If you like today's show, please be sure to rate it and share it with your friends. And as always, you can find more about the show and me at FOMOSapiens.com and PatrickMcGinnis.com.